Alright, you guys, welcome back to Little Man, Big Conversations. Man, I tell you, each and every time I have a guest on here, I never know who or what is going to come to the table. And today, I've got the best of both worlds. I've got a who and I've got a what in the terms of what am I watching on stage. And I mean that in the best way possible, because some of these acts that I've had the pleasure of seeing over the last couple of years, man, they will blow your creative and literal mind in the best way possible. But don't take my word for it, because she's here today. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, the one, the only Scarlet Tinkabelle. Scarlet, how are you?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Okay, so I remember coming and seeing a show, oh gosh, it would have been, I think it would have been maybe close to 2 years ago. And I remember seeing your act, and funny story, I'll tell my first impressions first, and then I'll let you know the story prior. I remember seeing one of your acts, and I think it was a Tinkerbell-inspired act. And I remember sitting there, and for those out there that you may have seen the cover art, there'll be a photo of Tinkerbell on the cover art of this episode. But man, you are one tatted up lady. They're all creative, they're all different, it's all vibrant, it's all exciting. And I remember seeing this tattooed girl come out as Tinkerbell, and I thought, what is happening? Where am I? This is awesome. That this is such an escapism. This is such a cool little vibe, because I'm a big fan of storytelling. I like seeing entertainments. I like seeing performances have a bit of story, they have a bit of storytelling to them. And that was one where I thought, hey, straight off the bat, I get it. I know what's happening here. And it just proceeded to be this extravagant 3 to 4 minute act to a song. And I thought, that is awesome. And I remember telling some of my wrestling friends that I went and saw this burlesque act and mentioned that you had an act there. And one of my trainers, one of my oldest wrestling friends, actually said to me, he goes, man, I went to a burlesque act a few years ago. I said, oh, yeah, trying to find some common ground. And he mentioned, yeah, there was this girl there that did a big act, and she sort of impersonated being the poop emoji. And I thought, what? And that wasn't the act that I saw. And I went, are you sure you saw burlesque? And he goes, yeah, I swear on my life it was a burlesque show, man. Like, trust me, it was. And I went, yeah, okay. Man, years later, did I find out that you had that act.
I did.
For the people that aren't really sort of okay, so I will take a break here and let you describe what that act was, because right now it sounds like I'm having a mild stroke. This is a real thing. Do you remember, that first act, was that of Peter Pan inspired Tinkerbell? Was that the vibe you were going for?
Yeah, so my Tinkerbell act, which is still in current rotation, it was my take on Tinkerbell getting her wings. But it's sort of also a parallel story of myself giving my own wings to be able to go and be free and be creative and present things in a way that I want people to see them in. So yeah, it's something that's really close to my little fairy heart. But yeah, like, it's evolved and changed over I think I've been doing that act for about 3.5 years now.
Right. Okay.
And it's grown and grown to what Lenore Noir, another local babe, calls propageddon, because it's got so many props in it. But yeah, like, it really is. It started mainly about Tinkerbell, and I absolutely love Disney. And I have done, well, obviously, because my name's Tinkerbell. Yeah, so it came from wanting to put Tink on stage, and instead of doing like the typical Peter Pan Tinkerbell type scenario, I wanted to delve a little bit more into Tink's backstory of, her getting her wings and being able to fly away and be her own creature.
Yeah. Well, that definitely came across on screen, because it was such a... You were?
Amazing.
Well, it was amazing. It was captivating. But we got to get to that other story now, because, yeah, that was a story I heard long before I saw this act, and then I was told through the grapevine that you were the one that did it, and I thought, at first I couldn't put the two and two together, because I'd seen that Tinkerbell act first, and I went, there's no way that this performer does that act. It must be a burlesque act, but I just couldn't envision it in my head. Like I was struggling to sort of understand the concept. And then when I saw it, I thought, there's no one else that could sort of get away with doing this kind of act. So for the people out there that
real shit time.
Let's just say when I saw that act, I did not leave feeling shitty. It was funny as shit. It was awesome. And it was just one of the, I think it was one of those risky performances where it's very much kind of those acts where you think this is going to sink or this is going to swim. And it's going to be a very thin line the first time I do it of which way it's going to go, because some people will get it and some people will go, I don't understand what's happening. But for the people at home right now that are probably hearing this that may or may not have seen it, for the people that have not seen it and have no idea what we're talking about, please fill in the gap of this not shitty act.
So it's a real shit time on stage. It's a whole lot of fun. I love having a bunch of different acts that are just so different from each other. I don't want to have a repertoire of routines that are all the same or same style. Like I want to be known for that person that, oh wait, what's she gonna do next?
Yeah.
And it, I really love comedy on stage, and I think if you can find a line that you can cross within doing that parody and comedy, then it's really fun to take your audience on just finding that edge and just keeping them there, maybe pushing over it just a little bit with things that might make them a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's a Pumergy. It's a giant Pumergy that I actually handcrafted myself.
Really?
Yeah.
How long did that take you to make?
The actual construction was probably, I still work full time in dance. So I kind of, I guess, put it together over a month after work and weekends and stuff. But the conceptual plan for it took me about 8 months to work out how the hell I was going to build this thing.
And that was all just sort of generated from scratch. Like obviously you had the
I just bought a roll of brown fabric and went, yep, I'll make a skirt that is going to be a Pumergy that I can pack down and take with me wherever I want to travel to.
Right.
Fun fact, it opens up and I can sleep on it if I need to.
That's a strange image to walk into late at night. Oh, she's a gigantic puma.
Yeah, or in the back of my car if I can't drive home or something. Who knows? Anyway, I wanted to do something that was a bit fun and that played on this edge of the audience and seeing how far I could push them and take them, but in a fun way and nothing too scary or in need of consenting to. And yeah, so I think I was going through a bit of a time, and I kept referring to, oh, it's just a shit show. And then I clicked and went, I'm going to be a Pumergy. I'm going to spread my shit all over the country. And so it then became this like marketing thing in the back of my head going, people are going to think of me when they're having their morning constitutional. It's going to be great. This is so good. I don't know whether people do or not, but I like to think that they do and that my marketing works.
Yeah.
So then, I tried to think of as many songs that if you actually were thinking about shit, what songs were relatable. Yeah. There are so many freaking songs. And so many.
How many did you end up choosing? Was it 2 or 3?
I ended up by choosing 6.
6 in that one act?
Yeah, there's 6 tracks in one act, which normally I would say is way overkill, but I think it just kind of comes together in this big, brown, shitty, fun time. Yeah, so it's all about poo and flatulence, and there's auto-tuned fart noises through the whole track, courtesy of CC Shabam, who did have a good giggle the entire time she was making the edits for me. And then, I luckily had a friend that believed in what I was doing and let me debut this shit show on her stage. So I think it was 3 years ago, December, at Curves and Claws. And it was, I can't remember what the theme for the Christmas thing was. It might have been Annie Christmas or something.
Right.
And anyway, I was like, I've got this act and I really want to get it out this year. And your show's in December. It's literally the last show that I'm doing for the year. can I do this act and how do we make it work for your theme?
Mm.
She's like, yeah, you could do that on my stage. God bless Kitty Obsidian. Thank you so much. And so we kind of marketed it as Mr. Hanky the Christmas poo.
Right, yeah.
Because we all stuff ourselves stupid at Christmas. So it's got to be a poo. So, yeah, we debuted Mr. Hanky the Christmas poo, a.k.a. the shit show. And everyone loved it. It was still in its infancy. I think at the time I hadn't quite gotten the balls to sploosh on stage in the way that I wanted to for that act. So we had like a little Pumoji guy that I kind of robbed myself with. And, you know, it progressed later on to a full schmear with a toilet paper bow twirl at the end, which is a time and a half, because I don't know if you've ever tried holding toilet paper while your hands are insanely sticky. But it does not come off easily.
No, just to put an asterisk on that, because there's probably some people out there that have heard the word splooshing and then heard hand sticky and then performance. They're starting to get the wrong impression here, and I don't want to give that vibe. People going, I hope she does the shit show tonight. It probably gets really raunchy. What, for those out there that are listening, what is splooshing? Because there's probably some people that are thinking it's not what it actually is, because that's where
splooshing is like fetishizing food on bodies, basically.
Right. Okay. So I'm assuming.
So, like, if you were like sexually smearing yourself in some form of food for your viewing entertainment, or even for your own entertainment. I mean, like the product that I get to sploosh myself with is actually very moisturizing.
Well, that's it for us here today. Yeah, I think I get your drift. It's a different shade. It's not as bright and vibrant, but it works and it gets a reaction. That's the main thing, right?
It sure does. I had my first walkout last year.
Wow, really? Someone thought it was real?
I crossed the line, apparently.
Did someone think it was real? Is that why they left?
I don't know. I think it was a guy in a bar. He had a beer. And it wasn't a normal burlesque show, so it was like very integrated with, I think there was some singing, some spoken word, some mainstream dances that, you know, very highly trained and were beautiful and amazing to watch.
Yeah.
And then there was, you know, some variety burlesque acts popped in there, and I was requested to do the shit show. I think this was I can't remember which show it was. Anyway, so it was in the Valley, in an upstairs room. Gone out there, everyone's having a good time, and it wasn't a densely packed audience, so you could see people in the audience.
Yeah.
And there's this guy drinking a beer, and he's like bopping along to the tracks because they're all very well-known tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this is funny as fuck. It's got farts all through it, like, you know, general thing. And then the splooshing section comes out towards the end, and he's literally almost spat his beer, put his hands up in surrender, and going, nope, and just like totted on out.
Amazing. Yes, it's the weird thing about performance acting, because sometimes the audience can't diverse between reality and fiction. I know firsthand in my field, in the pro wrestling world, there have been some times where I've gone out there and I've said things to the audience to piss them off because I was a bad guy, and that was my role. My role was to make them upset at me, so that when the good guy did something, be it to either the guy I was managing or to me, everyone would go, yay, finally, that little piece of shit, no pun intended, got hit. And that was the whole point. You make the good guy look good by you basically being an asshole. Again, no pun intended. And there were times, quite literally, where I would have promoters come into the locker room after our segment on the show, after our match, and ask, is Flash here? Is the guy that he's with, are they both here? And we'd say, yeah, sweet. To which the promoter, quote, okay, good. I was just wondering, because there's fans outside wanting to punch you for what you said out there. Because they can't determine whether or not what we were doing was a real moment or whether it was part of the show. So when situations like that happen, like for yourself doing that act where it breaks that fourth wall and people go, oh, is this real? And you go, well, no, it's not, because it's an act. It's obviously like, this isn't, you know, you're not really putting on your body.
I'm not really going to eat my own shit.
Yeah, But the thing is, if you do it in such a way that you believe in what you're doing, they have no other choice than to go, shit, everyone here is reacting like it's real. I'm out. And that's where you hit that nail on the head and you go, this is awesome, because not only is this working and 95 to 98% of the audience is getting it, but that 2% that sort of goes, what? And then that unique percentage that goes, I'm out of here. Man, I think sometimes it's almost even better than getting a standing ovation for your act.
Like, yeah, it's like when you're playing a game and you unlock a new level, you're like, yes, I did the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you get those achievements. You go, I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay, great, that's happening. But yeah, so that happened for your act. That's how I remember seeing you that first time. I think a couple of years later, I started to. I think I just decided, like, I was obsessed with The Greatest Showman. Hugh Jackman's always been a big influence in my life, and I thought tap dancing is kind of cool. And I remember seeing tap dancing images as a kid. Like, I can't remember the name of them, but there was a group of them in Sydney, or there was like Australian.
The Tap Dogs?
That might have been it, yeah.
Like real industrial, bunch of lads in flannels and denim.
Yeah, that was.
Tap
I remember.
Dogs.
Yeah, that was it. That's it. And I remember seeing that commercial and being like, "This is rad." And then I thought, like, that always stuck with me as a kid. I don't know why. And then I think, like, a couple of days after at school, I started to, like, try and tap on the school and tripped over or something. I don't know. But I remember seeing that. I remember seeing Hugh Jackman do it, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to try doing this. And yeah, this is an open forum, so you can.
It's not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, I come from a background in entertainment where we have to be fluid to a certain extent when we're taking the moves, but all the leg movements are very much planted. Like, you plant your leg here, you do this, you shift on the balls of your feet on your ankles. Yeah, so that was a big process for me to sort of, as you put it, because I remember you saying it, just don't think about your legs, because when you think about your legs, that's when your legs are going to lock up and they're going to start going back to what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just sort of just think about the actions, but not of your body parts. And I went, yeah, that makes sense. And then, of course, I then proceeded to consistently think about my legs the entire time, which was not helpful. But
if I remember correctly, you're a bit of like a Danny Toes Freddie Flintstone in your tap shoes.
Thanks. I didn't realize this was a roast. Anything else? No, I was. I agree. I was very much yabba dabba doo, stomping the floor. And you're like, okay, there's no stomping in this part. I'm like, oh, sorry, stomp. I'm surprised I didn't cause damage to that lovely floor that we all practiced on, because I was quite stampy. I was quite stampy during those performances. But
look, you're wearing tap shoes. You may as well make some noise, right? Go stamp away.
Yeah, I mean, at home it was fine, but yeah, doing that act was awesome. And I remember really having an appreciation, and much more so than, I don't think it was like an ignorant thing. Like, it wasn't like a self-contained bubble where I thought, yeah, tap dancing's cool, it looks easy, anyone could do it. It wasn't that. But I remember just thinking like how cool it was to then go and do it. And I thought, wow, like this, I had a big appreciation in the sense of like, this is a lot of work. And it's amazing to see those people on stage be so easy breezy with it, to a certain extent yourself being able to teach that and just be like, yep, this is easy, this is just how it is. And it just made me really sort of appreciate the work that I guess entertainers and performers do, not only in that field, but just teaching gents in general, which is something that you yourself do.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely a time. But that's how I met you, and that's how we ended up training together for a certain amount of time. But if we're going to rewind the hands of time, I remember if we rewind it back to how this all began for you. I remember when I was training with you, you were saying to me at one stage that, because I was saying to you, like, how are you able to just do this? How is it able to just click and register for you so easily? And I remember you saying to me, I've had dance involved in all my life. So take me back to you. What was your first experience with dance like?
Yeah, and look, I don't think I remember my exact first experience with dance as a child, because I kind of started when I was 2.
2 years old?
Yeah, so like you don't really learn too much, obviously, at 2 years old, but I vaguely remember my nan used to take me to all my dance classes, and then when I got older, competitions and stuff. And I vaguely have this memory of her sitting on the outer edge of a hall while we were wearing little pink fluffy things to the Thumbelina music.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this is like somewhere when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember other times from this same hall that my nan was like then sitting outside, and then that she was sitting in her car halfway across the car park. So I've been told since I got older, not much older, but since I got older, that I didn't like going to dancing when I was little, and that I wouldn't stay there or I wouldn't behave unless I knew my nan was there.
Right.
So my poor nan used to have to sit in the car and wait the entire class all the time.
Right. Okay. So you needed that sort of that safety barrier, that safety blanket, if you will.
Safety nan.
Yeah. Do you remember what the act was that you were learning it to?
Yeah, it was a Thumbelina dance. So I don't know
Right.
if you've seen like the Thumbelina.
Yeah, it's
She is born in a flower.
Yeah, I have a tattoo of it.
Oh, really? I did not know this.
No, I do. I know. I'm only kidding. I do know the act though. It's it's a classic. I believe it was a children's tale. Was it also a poem in a book?
I think so. Yeah. I've never really delved down the Thumbelina line, but
okay.
That was my first actual dance memory. Was that? I think like my better and more extravagant memories early on in my dancing world, I would have been about 6, and that was when I was starting to compete for ballet and tap. So yeah, not too much down the line, but yeah, every weekend was tutus, tiaras, and competitions, and I absolutely loved it. So I obviously got over the fact of my nan having to be there, although she did take me to all the competitions and was still there front row and center.
So that was your first experience of it, and you remember being a part of it, and it was Thumbelina and things like that. But do you remember then when it sort of became, I guess as a kid, like as a child, you always have that sort of sponge mentality where everything is so new and so vibrant and so absorbed as you're growing up. Can you pinpoint or vaguely remember the time when it sort of became not just something that you enjoyed, but you knew that it was something that you were really passionate about? Was that still at an early age where you thought, oh, I can't wait to go to dance practice, or did that come later on?
Yeah, no, I was like that as a kid.
Right, okay.
I was always like that. So once I think I got over my initial, 2 to 4 year type thing when I was first learning and very reliant on my nan being there, I used to love going to dance class, and I was very lucky to always be in such a supportive family. Like I had a single mom and my nan, and it was just us 3 little ladies for quite some time there. And, mum would go and work 3 jobs so I could go to Catholic schooling and do all this dancing and learn piano and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'd always be grateful, and I'd always love going to dance class. I was an only child, so it was, a fun activity with other kids, and it was creative, and I've always loved classical music, and back in the late 80s, early 90s, the rock music and jazz music that we used to have, it was great. I loved every moment of being there. The harder it got meant the more you had to work for it, but then you'd reap the rewards of putting the extra time in, and you started understanding, give and take and what you can actually mentally and physically put your body through.
Yeah, that is it's definitely a tough process to go through, not only as a performer, but being that young of an age. But there was something that you knew early on that you went, okay, this is definitely something that you were, I guess, something that you were addicted to, you were really looking forward to learning dance and becoming a part of it. Was it just dance itself, or was it starting to feel like, were you enjoying performing?
It was all of it. I loved learning. I loved performing. I loved working on costumes with my nan. So she made a lot of my costumes for my competitions when I was a kid. And so I competed pretty much from 6 to 15 years of age.
Wow.
For ballet and tap, not so much jazz. It wasn't much my jam at the time, but Yeah, ballet and tap. I'd always compete most weekends. And a little fun fact was my mom used to be a tap and Highland dancer as well. So
Wow, so it's sort of in the
have
family
little
history a little
tap
bit.
offs on the weekends, and yeah.
So you sort of got like a family history there. So you had that sort of support not only from your nan, but your mum was also had
Yeah,
experience with it.
she grew up doing the same thing, dancing and competing, and I think even for me, I got to an age where I wanted to learn off other people more and do like more courses instead of competing
Yeah.
at that level, and go on and get my teaching certificates and stuff like that.
So she wasn't like a dance mum, was she? Where she was like, "No, you're doing this wrong." She was supportive. She was doing it
look,
with you.
there was moments.
Oh, really?
Moments. There still
Okay.
are moments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's like round 2 with Burlesque World, but like there'd be times where she'd try and give constructive criticism, whether I took it constructively or threw a tantrum. It depended on the day. But yeah, like all our family was involved. My nan, my mom, both of them. Well, nan was a ballroom dancer with my grandpa back in the day as well. So everyone's come from their love and passion for dancing and creativity. So it was always, if you don't want to go, don't go. Like, no one's making you go. I'm like, but I want to go. Why would you say I didn't have to go?
Yeah. Did it made things easier having that network?
Yeah, I think when you're choosing, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some days where I would have been digging my heels in going, I don't want to go, I'm exhausted. Or, school, when I got into high school, you start getting more and more assessments and it gets too much and your brain's going to explode. But I've always found like dance as being an outlet and a happy place for me. It doesn't matter what's going on outside of that room. The minute you put your dance gear on, you put your shoes on, you get into that mindset, it makes it all go away. Like, all the problems go away.
That's very interesting because we have a similar thing with pro wrestling, and I've said this before to various performers. I think I may have even said it to you, but for the people listening, burlesque and which we'll get into, and wrestling share a very similar ground in the sense of you create a character, you have entrance music. Well, in burlesque case, the music that you dance to, and both platforms create a story. You're telling a story in the ring about how you overcome your opponent, and in burlesque, you're telling a story that resonates with not only the character, but the song is sort of a complement to the story that you're telling in your dance and your performance. So they share a similar trait in that sort of environment. But I get what you mean, because there are many, many times where guys that have been in that locker room, and girls, and for myself as well, I've thought, man, I don't want to be at this show. I've got things happening in my personal life. I'm not enjoying it. There's people out there I don't want to see. I just don't really want to be here. This match is a bit iffy, blah, 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 blah. But as you've just said, as soon as you get into that mindset, as soon as you put all the gear on, as soon as you sort of psych yourself up and get into that zone where you stop being regular everyday person and become the character. And for you, it's when you're out there and that music hits and it's boom, lights are on, let's go. For myself and for a lot of people out there, as soon as you walk through that black curtain to go out there and do your job in that ring, and you do your job and you come back, from the minute you walk out that curtain to the minute you go back through it, everything is on pause. You're just in the zone, you're creating that environment, you're creating that zone, you're creating those memories and telling that story in your performances, and then yeah, once you get backstage, okay, now real life can pick up again. And it's sort of, I don't know how it feels for you, because I feel like it's sort of an escapism. It's almost euphoric in a way where it's just like, I don't have to worry about anything right now because I'm just here in the zone. I could be having the shittest day. I could have got the most strangest text message a mere moments before I came out there. Situations that are really going to sort of rock you as you're about to step out there. But as soon as you step out there, it's like, I remember why I love this. Is that what it's like for you when you go out there and do it?
Totally. It's like that even just going into a classroom and learning or teaching, though.
Yeah.
Like anything, like I used to say dance it off. Like if you're in a bad mood or a funk or whatever, like find the tiniest amount of mojo and just go have a dance jam, or, in your case, go have like a little bit of a wrestling jam or a workout jam, even if it's just yourself. Yeah. And like instantly you feel better. Like your mood gets better.
Oh yeah.
You feel happier, you get the adrenaline rush from it all, like especially if it's going on stage. And then you come off and okay, real world can kind of suck sometimes. It does for everybody. But like knowing and doing these things that make us feel better means we can deal with the rest of it that little bit better too.
Yeah, and it is such a, it's such a, like, I wish I could bottle that sensation. That moment, the music hits and you're out there performing, that rush of adrenaline, and it's almost like this weird hybrid of nervous energy, anxiety, and adrenaline all sort of merging together to create this concoction of, whoa, I'm excited. And you get out there and it's just the perfect formula for being in the zone. That element, that blend and that mix of everything happening just as you step out there, I wish I could bottle that sensation or sell it as a fragrance and just share it with people and go, this is what it's like.
There'd be no more need for antidepressants.
Well, yeah, exactly. And there would be such an influx of people wanting to be a part of a creative business to go, look what this feeling's like. And they'll go, wow. And you go, I've never experienced anything like that before. And it's like, yes, exactly. This is why we do it. Not for the fame and the acclaim, that sort of comes later, but just for the act of performing and creating those memories for people to then get off stage and go, okay, I did my part, I did my job. But the best thing, and I'm going to ask you if you've had this, because the best thing that I feel like is that when people are leaving a performance and they've seen you perform and they've been excited and they've paid their money, they've enjoyed the whole show from start to finish, I feel like the most rewarding thing, and it may sound egotistical, but I don't mean it to be that way. It is a matter of professionalism, and it is a matter of creating those memories for people, which I love to do, and I'm sure you're the same, is that when people leave, you'll get that sort of eavesdrop kind of conversation from regular day strangers, fans of whatever industry they're going to see, and you'll hear, oh wow, wasn't that show great? Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole show, but did you see what Tinkerbelle did in her act? And that's the bit where you go, they enjoyed everything, like everything to them. They enjoyed the whole thing, from the MC, from the start to every act to the end. But the moments that stand out are those performances that they can either resonate with or that they can connect with. Because I'm not sure if you have had this, and I would like to ask you this question. Do you feel like there are some times, and this isn't trying to bury anyone, this isn't attacking anyone as a performer, but I'm just talking in terms of the act themselves. Do you feel like sometimes with burlesque acts especially, there is almost sometimes with certain acts that there is almost like this invisible glass screen, like an aquarium, where people want to feel engaged and sort of be a part of it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they are because there is that screen. Like they're looking at the crowd, they're interacting with them to a certain extent, but there is still this sort of, emotional connection with the group, like a barrier. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. And I think I've even experienced myself being on stage and having that barrier there. And I don't like either your mindset's off or like the crowd's different or something, or you can't find that connection point. And it happens to everyone. So like, as much as I have seen it on a stage as well, I've also felt it from being on the stage and trying to learn from it. Is like one of the most important things of being a performer is connecting with your audience. So trying to make sure that you learn and grow and work out what works for you so that when you step on that stage, you can connect with your audience. Whether that be like you might be doing a really sensitive topic on stage that, creates the barrier from the audience's side because they're a bit nervous about what they're about to watch. Or they're not liking where it's taking them or something like that. Like you've got to find and you've got to be happy with how you're connecting with the audience. Some performers do like pushing that stuff across the edge. Like it might be a topical thing, it might be an actual physical thing that they're doing on the stage. I know there's been times where I'm sitting there like jutted back in my seat because it's too much for me to handle. I've seen a lot of kink things and suspension and blood, and there's been a whole range of things that I've seen over the years. But yeah, like some people do create that reservation when they're watching. And like a performer on stage trying to gain that connectivity, it's hard. You can't always see your audience either, so you're like, I need to make eye contact with that blur of a light just over to that right. but yeah, like it's hard, and it's learning experiences for all of us. And we're human. We're still normal people. We're not going to get it right 100% every time.
Yeah, but it is that sensation that sometimes, and I really resonate with what you're saying, where you feel like, man, I really want to break that barrier. And then it is that thing, it is that learning process, because at the beginning, it's very hard to not only get on stage and perform, but to then be able to connect with an audience on an emotional level. Because once you are able to do that in arguably all of your acts or ergo matches, then it really does create that memory and that moment, and have those people saying, yeah, the whole thing was great. Oh, but when this moment happened in this dance, or when this moment happened in this match, man, wow, I really feel for that person. Or wow, that act was so great.
Yeah, and they really go on that journey with you while you're on stage. Like, you're really sucking them in and you're taking them exactly where you want them to go and feel.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be those dramatic or sad acts. Sure, by default, those dramatic and sad acts, naturally, about 70% of the work is already done, because people will hear violin, sad music, or have face paint looking sad, and you'll go, oh, okay, this is not going to be, I guess, a bright moment right now. I'm going to be taken on this journey and that experience. But when it gets to that 100% and they really go, oh, wow, I did not see it going this way. And I'm glad it did, because, yeah, that is what it's like. And you sort of, again, break that fourth wall where reality becomes a show, or a show becomes reality. And people go, yeah, it was an act, but that really hit home for me. But I know it was an act, but, oh, man, like, that was nuts.
And it makes you think, and it makes you feel.
Yeah. And that's the main thing, is that you want people to leave, not only enjoy themselves, but feeling something and going, I can't wait for the next one. Just like when you go to the cinema, you go, wow, that was really great. I hope they do a sequel. It's a similar experience. But we may be jumping ahead here, because we're talking about current day burlesque, especially in the acts that you're doing now. If we rewind back to where we were, so you had ballet and tap experience also after was this shortly after your Thumbelina experience as a kid?
Yeah, well, Thumbelina was ballet. That was the first thing I learned was ballet. So,
okay.
Well, I guess you'd call it ballet. I think it was aimed to be a ballet class.
Right. Okay. So, and this is I'm coming from way outside the ballpark here. I mean, I've trained with you. You know that my leg movement is next to none. But I've seen documentaries and I've seen those intense clips and rehearsals of all the girls in their dresses holding those balance beams and bowing and moving the leg movements and training, and it looks rigorous and really, really intense. Is it like that when you're training for an act to what you've experienced?
You betcha.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So did you ever think during those times, because ballet is so intense and it's such a I guess, for lack of a better term, such a grueling process in the best creative way possible that I want to say. I don't want to make it sound like it's torture, depending on how often a week
it depends on what you're training.
Yeah, yeah. But your first ballet experiences, although you were 2 years old, once you started growing up and experiencing ballet more, did you find it as enjoyable, or was it starting to become a bit more, I wouldn't say tedious, but was it starting to become a bit more, I would say, extreme once you were getting older? Like, were you going, oh man, I really just want to take like a day off here? Or were you really invested in it going, I love it. Like, this is just the best.
Like ballet was definitely not my strong suit going through classical dance training. I was more a tap dancer. That was my jam, still is my jam. It's something that I absolutely love, chucking on a pair of tap shoes and having a play with all the noises you can make. And yeah, like ballet, I think's been a really important backbone for me. Especially, just the way you carry yourself and lines, and you're a bit more aware of like how you're placing yourself on stage, or even in photo shoots, or generally as you're standing around during a day. You tend to have different posture that I don't even think about, and I don't particularly see in myself these days, because it's been so long since I've done much ballet at all. But yeah, like I finished probably doing ballet training around 17. So quite a few years ago now.
So
And
you're
I guess,
involved in it for 15 years,
yeah,
give or take.
yeah. I like, and I still enjoy going and doing like a random, we'll call it adage, because that's, a fancy word we can use for it, an adults class, just to have some ballet moves, just to keep some technique in there. Make myself aware again. I still do the random one every now and again, but not seriously training in ballet anymore. I think it got to a point where I guess you either do it for fun or you keep doing it with professionalism in mind. At 16, 17, that was not where I wanted my ballet dancing to go. I enjoyed doing it, but there wasn't really an end game for why I was doing it anymore. It was more I just love to dance. I'm going to go do these things. And then it got to the point where, I had to work more, had bills to pay. Dance became less of a thing in my life. I think I had a stable boyfriend by 18 that I had moved out of home with, and dancing just wasn't a huge part of my life at that very, very moment in time. Obviously, I found my way back to a certain extent. But yeah, like that was my turning point, was, late teens, and other things were bigger in my life at the time.
Right. So you were just you enjoyed ballet, but you didn't want it to be of a classical sense. You were just getting to that age where was it not as expressive as you wanted your dance to be, or you just didn't want to do classical stuff?
I think it was just at that point where you either went on to go and study to teach it, and like ballet is quite serious work when you go to do those sort of teaching experiences. The syllabus that I trained under, the teaching qualifications equivalent to a 3-year uni degree.
Wow.
And that wasn't something that I could see myself going through. I didn't think, and I know now my feet and my knees wouldn't have held out doing that extensive amount of work at the time either.
Wow. Okay. Why was that? Were you just working very hard and it caused injuries, or?
I get a lot of cramping in my feet, so I have a stop, drop, and roll system that my feet cramp up, and I just stop what I'm doing and drop.
Literally?
Yeah. It's getting less and less. I've been working on it over the last couple of years, but I think, from all the years of dancing and then stopping completely, and then trying to get some of it back, my feet do cramp every now and again. I've gotten cramps in my feet within 2 steps of walking on a stage, having to perform, and had cramps in my feet the entire time I've been on stage, and come off and cried.
Wow. And it just happens at random? There's no way to sort of know the telltale signs of, it's about to happen?
I get it's about to happen, and I managed to sit down before it happens now, but it just seems to be a random thing. It can be to do with so many things. So not stretching enough, not enough water, magnesium, if you're stressed, the weather, like so many things can play a part to any muscle cramping, not just in feet. It's just very inconvenient to be right in the arch of your foot.
And has that been since you were a kid, or has that been because you were dancing so much as a kid up until today?
I'm not really sure. I've only really noticed it in the last, say, 10 years. So after full-on dancing time, I don't think I remember noticing it back in the days of dancing every day. But yeah, like it's definitely something that would have happened one way or another. And I'm sure it's getting less and less now, so maybe it'll eventually dissipate. Right.
Okay. So there must be that stigma that you had in high school that being a dancer, it kind of comes with did you have kind of like a cool vibe to it? Like, hey, this girl here, she does dance and it's really awesome. Did you have kind of that, I guess, reputation come out schooling, or were you very much just doing your own thing?
So I had a bit of a mixed time at school. Okay. So I grew up in Sydney, and we moved up to Queensland in the year 2000. So I was 15 at the time.
Yep.
And it was a really awkward age for moving states to a place that you know absolutely nobody.
Right.
we had family and stuff up here, but or family friends, I should say, but nothing that would help me in my social activities in life. And, like down in Sydney, I was in the cool kid group, and I never did dance at school, but, a lot of the girls that I went to high school with were in my dance studio, or we competed against each other on weekends, or like we went and did other troop type things outside of our dance schools and normal school. I never did dance and stuff at actual school until I moved to Queensland. So I went from being in the cool kid group that did cheer squad every now and again, and, I was not a sporty person except for dance. So when I moved to Queensland, I was like, I'm going to go and do dance and be in the drama class, music, dance, do all the things that I didn't get to do much of down in Sydney. So that didn't make me any friends whatsoever. So I came as the new kid and could dance, and it wasn't received very well for a little while. So I went from being one of the coolest people in my grade to not really having a single friend.
Right. Okay.
I made some friends. It's all good. I'm still friends with them now. But yeah, ultimately I moved up at a very weird age bracket for trying to make friends.
Yeah.
And the minute I got my P's and had a car, I was out of there.
Right. Okay. So you really were like, nah, I'm not enjoying this new process. It's almost trying to start over again. That's to a certain extent.
Totally. Right. And at that age, it's a hard time. Anyone thinking of moving with a 15, 16-year-old child, don't. It's not fun. It might be different now, social media and stuff. It wasn't really a thing then.
Did you move up for dance, or was it other family-related reasons at the time?
Other family-related reasons. So, yeah.
Okay. So you're up here, you finish schooling. What happens then? Because do you think that having that family history of dance allowed you to pick it up easier, or were you just always sort of able to just understand and mimic the movements and therefore learning the dance? Was that never a tough process for you?
I think everyone in their own way finds love in either music or movement. There's something in either of those that people gel to, right? Like, you might not be a mover and groover, but you can appreciate music, or you might get involved in music. Dance is a bit of both. So, there's so many different styles, so many different music tracks that you can have to dance to or to move to make you feel things, to have an outlet to do things in. So I think like most people will connect to some form of that, whether they realize it or not. And tapping into that at such a young age, it's just always been home to me.
Right.
So I don't know if I didn't start dance at 2, whether I'd still be, well, maybe not 2, but if I didn't start dance as a child, I don't know whether I'd be drawn to it now.
Right. Okay. But
that's a conversation for a parallel universe.
An alternate Scarlet Tinkabelle.
God, I'd hate to think what that bitch be like.
What would the alternate be? If you're a Scarlet Tinkabelle, would you be an aquatic Thumbelina? That would be your alternate reality persona that you'd have to have a chat to. So, okay, so you've always had the ability to sort of pick up and do dance, given the history that you were doing at that point. So you've moved up. Schooling at this point was, I need to GTFO. This isn't fun. You didn't do school. You didn't do dance at schooling. Where were you at once you graduated? You got a car. You got your license.
I didn't graduate.
Right. Okay. So you pretty much. So you're saying you got your license, got your car, and you were adios. You just didn't want to stick around.
Yeah. So Mum would ring home during the day, and I'd be there with my mates playing pool. So I was a naughty tink, and would maybe not go to school every day of the week.
Okay.
So I got to the point where I was sat down and spoken to by my parents and was given, well, if you don't want to go to school, how about you go and get a job? I went, I can do that. So I went and started working.
Yep.
lo and behold, a year later, started a traineeship that got me into the wonderful world of real estate, where I've been stuck, happily recruited in ever since. Okay. So another conversation for another day. But yeah, so like I'd still done a few classes here and there. I got a full-time job, started working in real estate, and yeah, it was just like a normal life, work, home, boyfriend, dogs. Things were missing, no creativity, getting bored. Hey, I'm going to go do some tap classes. Great, let's go do that. Went and did some tap classes, started to hate real estate. And the first time I left real estate, my family and I bought a dance workshop down the Gold Coast.
Okay.
So those like kind of realigned me back into where I've always felt at home. So then I'm like connected with all the dance schools on the Gold Coast. I went in, picked up my tap stuff, and went in, got my qualifications for teaching for the FATD syllabus. And yeah, there was a couple of really great years there. And I really enjoyed being back on the dance floor, literally. I learned how to sew at this point because we made a lot of costumes for local schools. We made all of our own stock for leotards and stuff. Unfortunately, some of the larger companies that would stock our shop started to open up stores here in Queensland, which they hadn't done before. And it got to the point where there wasn't really a need for our family-run business. So we shut up shop. I went back to real estate, but I kept dancing.
So that's a very entrepreneurial mindset to have, from going from real estate to then saying, yeah, you know what, I'm feeling stagnant, I'm feeling bored, dance is sort of calling me again. Did you, having that qualification, because you had to go and do that course, I assume it was a course, yeah?
Yeah.
How long was that course for you? And what sort of drove you to take it from, well, I have the experience as a performer, I feel like I'm comfortable enough teaching it now? Was there this conversation that you had with your mum or your grandma, having that history, or did you just decide one day I'm just going to go do it?
Nan wasn't around by this stage, but
okay.
Yeah, like it was something that just sort of organically happened. Like I was back in the scene more, and I had met a wonderful lady named Joan, who also isn't with us anymore.
Okay.
And she was qualified to be able to teach teachers. And it was something that I didn't think I would be able to find on the Gold Coast, because the syllabus that I learned wasn't a main syllabus that they taught up here. It was something that was bigger down in Sydney and southern states. So I came across this lady in day-to-day selling of shoes and tights and leotards and costumes. And we got chatting, and I ended up by going and doing a couple of years with her to get through my teaching certificates, where, you know, you'd have live demonstrations in with the adjudicator and examiner, and all of that. So it was a really interesting process. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was scary at first, but, you know, like I'd helped by being a teacher aide in dance before, and this was just then going off and doing it for myself and by myself. You know, I guess some small part of me thought maybe I'll open a dance studio one day, but have other people do the hard stuff like the ballet, and I'll just be the tap teacher and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like obviously that didn't happen, but we've got the burlesque and variety school instead, so win-win.
Yeah. So are we getting to the stage now where burlesque starts becoming a part of your life? Because that, as you've just said, that is a main, I guess, a forefront of your performing acts now. So you were doing the tap school on the Gold Coast. You were creating the costumes, but that didn't eventuate it too much as you wanted it to be. What took you then from running a school on the Gold Coast to getting involved in burlesque? Was it almost an instant transition from one to the other, or had you always known of the burlesque community? How did that all come about for you?
Chuck a big old gap in there by about 5 years.
Okay.
I left the Gold Coast, moved to the Sunshine Coast, had nothing to do with dancing. I think I went and did some swing dancing lessons for a little while, just to learn something different. ended up falling into the pinup world. So this entire time of my life, I've been a tomboy.
Okay.
I'd get changed into costumes and I'd be like, it's sparkly and it has flowers on it. Why is it ruffly? I hate this. But I really liked being on stage. So it was like, okay, well, this is just what you wear. You know, it's just how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And Archie Arsenic and Aurora Arsenic, actually, who are very well known in our scene in both drag and burlesque. Back then, we were all normies and we had met through some mutual friends, and Archie decided they wanted to dress me up. I was like, okay. I don't know how I feel about this because, you know, I like my jeans and raised-back singlets and braids and no makeup. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
But she dressed me up in pinup, and I went down this little rabbit hole for a couple of years where I was competing for Miss Pinup Australia and getting real girly. And the thing that actually brought me back to somewhat of dancing was doing the pinup competitions. So it had been a couple of years gap, wasn't doing anything with my teaching certificates, wasn't going to classes, and did this competition. And there was like, okay, you've got to do day wear, swimwear, evening wear, and a talent section. Fuck, what's a talent section?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
wait,
right.
wait, I can tap dance.
Oh, yeah, because that would technically count, right?
Right? Yes, yeah. It's a talent. So I kind of like fell back into it just for this thing. And, you know, I kind of noticed when I was on stage doing that stuff that I'd missed the stage so much. I'd missed performing. I'd missed sharing these random little ideas that I'd had that I wanted to, you know, put on a stage in front of everybody and see what they thought of it, because that's what we do as artists. We put our heart and soul onto a stage and hope people like it. And then, yeah, like a couple of years through that, I was doing a little bit more of it. I did a lot of photo shoots and, you know, short little clips and things like that. And I ended up by moving to Brisbane. Came to Brisbane, knew some of the girls here from the pinup community that I connected with when moving here. And one of them encouraged me to come to my first ever burlesque class, which was taught by the wonderful Tina Joy at BB LaBeouf's School of Performance. And it was like a pinup inspired, I think they were like, it was, I don't know who the artist was that sang the track, but it was about enchiladas. So it was like these long white dresses that had little maracas and like very pin-up-y and pretty and florally. And I walked into this first class, no idea what I'm expecting. I'm like, well, at least I'm going to meet some cool peeps, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking about pasties. I'm like, what the fuck are pasties? Oh, you know, the little nipple covers. And I'm like, no, I don't know. And how the fuck do they stick on?
Right.
That was my first session in burlesque. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I didn't even think I was going to get on that stage at the end of that term. And I did, and I was liberated and I loved it. And I just fell into the burlesque world ever since. And that was my entry to burlesque.
Was it a nerve-wracking experience to go from, say, tap and ballet to now be told all about, oh, this is the art of burlesque, this is what you're going to be doing? Given that tomboy background and given that you now had to wear clothes that, I guess it's part of what we're doing here, was that kind of a what's happening here kind of vibe moment? Or were you just sort of like, hey, I'll just dive in?
Because the first initial class that I went and learned about and the person that I learned off, being that they were so relatable to the pinup world that I had fallen into beforehand, I instantly kind of connected with that scenario and, you know, the vibe and the aesthetic and everything that was going on in that particular piece. You know, it wasn't like a golden age of burlesque, you know, Ziegfeld Follies showgirl thing. I think I might have fallen off my perch had I gone into one of those classes for the first time. Right. But instead I went in and it was a relatable topic, things that I already liked. It was, you know, down the girly rabbit warren that I had fallen into with pinup, you know, but still strong and feminine and, you know, a character that I was already okay with. And I think it was just the perfect little blend and the perfect people to learn with. I can't remember everyone that was in that class, but I know Tina Joy was was the teacher, and I know I met Dolly Cakes in that class. Right. I distinctly remember meeting Dolly Cakes.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to part 1. Scarlet Tinkabelle. Make sure to follow Little Man Big Questions on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.